From news and views, issues and opportunities, we'll have in-depth conversations with decision makers to find out what they know and what they think. I'm Rico Hizon, inviting you to join the exchange because your business is our business. After visiting 9 countries within 8 months in office, President Bongbong Marcos touts promised investments worth tens of billions of dollars. Each pledge seen as a vote of confidence on the country coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and ready to do business with the global community. The economy is looking to foreign capital to boost business and trade, and Filipinos are waiting for jobs they would generate. But how long will it take for these investment pledges to materialize? It's about return on investment, or ROI. That's how President Bongbong Marcos describes his foreign trips to 9 countries in a span of 8 months in office, totaling $63 billion in business pledges. What do these mean to ordinary Filipinos, and how soon can they realize the benefits? Let's now have an exchange with Trade Secretary Alfredo Pascual. $63 billion, 3.48 trillion pesos. Which particular sectors will mainly benefit from these investment pledges secured by the President?
Well, the sectors, of course, the number one problem of Philippines, power supply. So many of the projects are in the renewable energy. So it will hit 2 birds with 1 stone. We solve our supply of electricity issues, and we are able to meet our target about reduction in carbon footprint. Of course, infrastructure is also an important area. We're looking at telecoms infrastructure like telecoms tower, which are now being built to be shared by the existing telcos. Manufacturing, of course, in the technology field, particularly semiconductors, parts of equipment, and some consumer products as well. Well, another strength we have is our IT BPM, or what we commonly call business process outsourcing. A number of new entrants have also signified, and in fact, some have already put up operations here, and expansion of existing ones. And of course, data centers. This is the new trend. We're going into the digital economy, digital world, and we need data centers to hold digitized data.
Wow, that's a whole slew of sectors that will benefit from these investment pledges, Secretary Pascual. But breaking down all of these investment pledges, the $63 billion which come from all of these 9 overseas trips, will they have an immediate impact on our kababayans in the next 6 months in direct investments and creating new jobs?
Yeah, there have been actual implementation that has happened already involving some companies like Procter & Gamble, setting up a new plant to produce diapers. Unilever also is setting up new manufacturing facilities. I mentioned earlier about BPO companies setting shop here, especially after we announced that we are prepared to allow them 100% work from home. Of course, very few will really actually go up to 100% work from home, but that's an attraction, that possibility. A few also will materialize, like this Cebu project. They've broken ground already for waste to energy project.
From these investment pledges, which will be translated into direct investments, about how many jobs will be created for our kababayans?
Well, this will happen over time. We have some tally, but we're looking at direct investment. Like, for example, the trip we had to Japan, we're looking at new jobs totaling 24,000. And that's only talking about the direct jobs. As you may know, there are linkages to other industries, and also there are auxiliary jobs that are not counted directly to the company but done by contractors. So if you add up all these things, it will amount to a sizable number. But the important thing is that these investments will stimulate the economy, and a number of informal jobs will happen in our micro enterprise sector and small business sector as they put up support services for these factories or companies that will set up shop in the Philippines.
Secretary, when I spoke to the President 2 weeks ago in Malacanang, he said that he will be taking a break from overseas trips to monetize these pledges. So after Japan, will he really be taking a break to see first the fruits of these pledges?
Yes, in fact, yesterday we spent the whole afternoon with the President going through the projects or the pledges one by one and updating him on the progress. So we're not resting on LOIs or MOUs that we brought home. You know, we're doing our work in terms of following up these prospects. DTI has people on the ground. We have commercial attachés, foreign service officers, and we are mobilizing them. So it doesn't mean that if we have these pledges, we just sit down and wait for them to materialize. No, we are running after the proponents.
That's a good strategy, running after the proponents, Secretary Pascual. So for 2023, how much of the $63 billion in the pledges will be in foreign direct investments? Would you have a ballpark figure? Is it 10%, 20%, or 30% of the $63 billion in pledges?
I don't want to hazard a guess. I just want to cite, for example, the experience of the Board of Investment, which is under DTI. It has set a target of 1 trillion pesos in registered investments. This is registered for incentives. After 1 month of 2023, meaning just in January this year, it has already achieved about 40% of the target. It has registered for 114 million worth of investments that will be granted incentives. And the target is 1 trillion. So we are 40% achievement rate. So 60% to go, but we still have 11 months remaining in the year. I would say count out February. We have 10 more months in the year.
That's very good news for the Filipino people and for the overall economy if we can really infuse additional foreign direct investments into the country. Thank you so much for this investment promotion exchange, Trade Secretary Alfredo Pascual. And now here's a rundown of the week's top business stories. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has raised yet again the cost of borrowing by 0.5% to 6% as it continues to fight persistent high prices. Filipinos abroad sent home $32.54 billion or 1.78 trillion pesos in 2022, breaching the previous record set in 2021. And the Sugar Regulatory Administration has issued an order authorizing the importation of 440,000 metric tons of refined sugar. And straight ahead on the exchange, where your business is our business. What does a country stand to gain? 9 foreign trips later from President Marcos. We have an exchange with economist Professor Winnie Monsod. And how are investment pledges helpful to foreign businesses in the country? The European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines joins us on CNN Philippines. News you can trust. Glad you're staying with us right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. The Marcos administration is banking on the president's overseas visits to bring in more investments and business opportunities. Let's now have an exchange with economist Professor Winnie Monsod. Professor Winnie, thank you so much for joining us. Are these overseas trips of the president important in securing new investment pledges or foreign direct investments for the country?
Well, I don't think so. It's just, parang bang roadshow yan eh. The exposure and trying to convince people. But the investment pledges that come in during a president's trip is not just because of the president's trip. There's a whole lot of work that goes in before that. In other words, these were investments that were already planned by the investor. Because, an investor corporation, a multinational, is not going to say, "Uy, nako, okay ang Filipinos, sabi ni President Marcos, kailangan mag-invest tayo and we will invest this much." No, the investment pledge comes out of a tremendous study.
You mentioned about these investment pledges. So far, in his last 9 trips, the government announced investment pledges of $63 billion. Could some of these pledges have also been from the previous administrations that were not realized and they have just made the pledge once again?
Most possibly. Very probably. Because you know yourself, a corporation does not come out and say, "I will pledge this much para mag-auction." No, they have studied it and they bring it all together and they time it to coincide with the president's visit. That's how it goes.
So
none of this is extemporaneous or spontaneous.
Right. So Professor, from this $63 billion from all of his trips so far in the last 8 months, which totals 3.48 trillion pesos, when do you think that this will ever be realized from your experience? When will the Filipino people actually feel these foreign direct investments and trickle down to our kababayans, which will create new jobs?
Well, it depends on who is investing. It depends on what the investment is. It depends on the investment country. For example, in President Duterte's term, when he went to visit China promised $23 billion. And we got about, I think, 2 billion. I may be wrong about the 2 billion, but not very far wrong. So, if it's a Chinese investment, let's not count on it.
Yeah, well,
if it is a Luxembourg investment, we will count on it.
Well, that's less than 10%, right? I mean, the Chinese pledged 23. They only invested 2 billion, and now during this trip of President Marcos, they pledged $24 billion. So how much of that will be realized? Oh.
And of course, Mr. Marcos wants to show that sulit ang trip niya. But as far as the experience goes, it depends on what country is pledging, how much, and what companies are pledging, and what the investment projects are.
So Professor, who do you think among the countries which President Marcos visited is the most reliable when it comes to making that pledge a reality and making it materialize? Is it the Japanese, the Americans, the Europeans?
The Japanese are usually very reliable. The Americans are reliable. The Europeans are reliable. From what I have seen, from what the promises of China have been, and what they have actually delivered, I would take China off the board.
We really need these foreign direct investments to sustain the economy, which expanded, Professor, by 7.6% last year. Is this growth, you think, really for real, or the people, our kababayans, especially the marginalized, feeling the economic gains, especially with issues like surging prices of goods and services?
Alam nyo, the growth of the Philippines last year was not dependent on foreign direct investment.
yeah.
Because foreign direct investment just started trickling in after 2020, right?
Yes.
So let's not equate our growth with the presence of foreign direct investment, because foreign direct investment is about 12%. The 12% of our total gross investment. So that's only a very small portion. We want to make it larger, but we must be sure that when we make it larger, we pick the correct investment projects. Because all foreign direct investment projects are not necessarily, profitable or good or good for the country.
Yes, our growth last year was also basically benchmarked on our strong domestic consumption from 110 million Filipinos. But with these pledges of $63 billion, which may start trickling in 2023, could this further boost our economy, Professor?
Pledges are nothing but words. I want to see the money coming in. If that money comes in, fine. But as of now, they are just pledges. We have to study all those pledges and find out. Somebody should, NEDA should, or the Philippine Institute of Development Studies should, and let them make a report and say, these are good, these are not good, etc., based on experience, based on your relations with the other countries.
And Professor, as they say, actions speak louder than words. And let's all hope that all of these pledges become a reality and will materialize to impact the Philippine economy. Thank you so much for this Investment and Business Outlook Exchange, economist Professor Winnie Monsod. And still ahead on the exchange, where your business is our business. How are foreign companies weighing in on the President's trips overseas, hoping to attract investments? We'll get the lowdown from the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines next. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust. Welcome back right here on the exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Investment pledges are piling up from various countries. How promising are these to foreign businesses here at home? Let's now have an exchange with European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines President Lars Wittig. Lars, great to have you back. With the President returning from every foreign trip with tens of billions in dollars in investment pledges, does this encourage more businesses to invest here as well?
It is clearly a reflection of a very positive intent to invest, but the pledges are exactly what they are called, namely pledges. So should we really be as optimistic as what they are suggesting? Well, without counting the exact dollar amounts, then the answer is yes. I believe that we are going to see a dramatic increase in foreign direct investments. I think we will see it already this year. I think that we already next year may succeed the numbers of, say, Vietnam and even Indonesia.
Because those are the main competitions right now, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia. But we have been lagging behind, Lars, in terms of foreign direct investments to these Southeast Asian neighbors for many, many years. What makes you really think that these pledges will really turn into hard cash and create new jobs for Filipinos?
This is really the turning point. We're actually already seeing it in the numbers, because when you look at the GDP growth, last year 7.6%, and projection for this year is 6.4%. That places the growth of the Philippines above Vietnam, above Indonesia, actually above all of Asia Pacific. We are clearly in the lead right now. When you look at the investments into ASEAN, including the VIP countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, then Europe is actually the largest single investor into the ASEAN countries. It's huge amounts, obviously, that have been accumulated in foreign direct investments. However, only historically 4.7% of these investments have come directly into the Philippines. That we believe we are seeing changing right now.
4.7%. That is a very small percentage of the pledges that have been made by foreign investors, and we do hope that this will get into the double digits. And the government announced that pledges from all the 9 countries that the president has visited has seen pledges of at least 3.4 trillion pesos. With this 3.4 trillion pesos in investment pledges, how much of this do you think will be realized in 2023 itself?
To be honest, it depends very much on which countries you see the pledges from. I think the country that gave the highest pledges was China, but historically, the actual numbers being invested do not really measure up. Where you see the most sustainable investments from, that's really Japan, it's Europe, it's US. The good way to measure this is to look at which countries really dropped in investments in 2020 when we got hit the hardest initially, the initial hit by COVID. And Chinese investments, they went down by 84%, but European investments, they only went down by 12%. And what you saw in the record year of 2021, you really saw massive increases, so that we actually delivered a $2-digit billion figure in foreign direct investments. It was record high, slightly lower last year, and now you ask about 2023. Well, I think the reason why it has been dropping slightly last year, still a very high number, by the way, but dropping slightly, is that with the game-changing reforms we have seen within the last 9 to 15 months, I'm talking about game-changing, it is massive investments, which are projects that just takes a little bit longer to materialize, but we see them coming. When I say a little bit longer, it is like they are so big, you just need a longer runway to get airborne, so to speak. But we expect massive investments into, for example, renewable energy. That is a result of the implementation rules and regulations to the Renewable Act that was signed just in December. Since then, there have just from my home country, Denmark, been $1 million pledge in writing, meaning they're literally documentation.
So Lars, when you say game-changing economic reforms, these are the amended Foreign Investments Act, Public Services Act, and the Retail Liberalization Laws. Like what you said.
One more. Rico, one more. You are perfectly right. You need to add one more, and that is what was signed in December. That was an amended implementation rules and regulations to the Renewable Energy Act, which allows foreign investors to own up to 100%, not capped at 40 any longer, but own up to 100% of power generation by solar or wind. These sectors will create billions of dollars of investment.
And we've seen European investors aggressively putting money, as what you say, to the VIP ASEAN countries like Indonesia and Vietnam. What is also keeping them back in making that aggressive expansion into the Philippines? Do they still perceive the country as a risk due to corruption and the bureaucracy, the ease of doing business?
The ease of doing business is always a major concern when European companies are looking into any other market to invest in. And of course, in terms of ease of doing business, Philippines is still in the heavy end of the scale. However, we are the most improved country in ASEAN. When you look at corruption, Vietnam is statistically more corrupt than the Philippines. When you look at other key factors that are very important to the investors, they look at the labor market. Vietnam are starting to see a dramatic shortage of labor. They don't have the same ample supplies of new people. The average age is significantly higher. It's over 30 years. In Vietnam here, it is barely 24, now closer to 25. Where we have a good supply of new labor. Where in Vietnam, because of the bottleneck in the supply of labor, you see now greatly increase in labor cost. So now, today, it is pretty much at par with the Philippines in terms of labor for manufacturing. 3 years ago, Vietnam was a lot cheaper. So they lost that advantage, and they will totally lose it within the next 1 to 3 years, because it is increasingly becoming more expensive. Salaries are really increasing in Vietnam. So bottlenecks and shortage of labor and the cost of labor will mean that more and more interest will be gravitating towards the Philippines. We also have to remember that in the Philippines, we have very, very stable labor force.
Lars, thank you so much for this foreign investment exchange. Everyone is hoping that we will see droves of foreign direct investments from European companies sooner rather than later. Lars Wittig is from the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. And before we go, here are words from business tycoon and also called the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, on investments. Don't pass up something that's attractive today because you think you will find something better tomorrow. And this is the exchange who makes sense of the facts and the figures and the ups and downs of the business cycle, because your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Thanks for watching CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust.